Hello everyone, good evening and welcome to Roma Theory. It's official. Nicola Zalewski stays at Roma, rejects Galatasaray's bid to bring him to Turkey and thus, with it, an increase in his wages. He said no to all of this. He wants to prove himself and wants to have another chance and kind of changing our opinions around him. Very, very interesting today. Also, Totti released an interview this morning. He spoke loud, he spoke up, kind of against the club in not hiring and not giving him in a position inside the club, which he always wanted. But I think the most important thing, as fans, out of Totti's interview, is his advice to De Rossi, which I think is so nice to read, and we're going to read this together. It's very interesting, and I actually believe and fully agree with everything Totti has said regarding to De Rossi and De Rossi's position, De Rossi's responsibility. So we will definitely get into that in this live stream as well. But yeah, right, how are we doing all? Hello to everybody in the chat. I can see a lot of people. Welcome to the stream. I went live earlier today because I finished uni a bit earlier. The first semester I always end late, which is why in these first months I will go live in the evening. But on Thursdays I end at lunchtime. So earlier stream. And let's do this. Don't forget to hit the like. Everybody in the stream, take 2 seconds, hit the like down below. It would be great if we can get 100 likes. Let's show our respect to Zalewski. Brave decision. We're going to get into this in a second. It's a brave decision. And I think courage and bravery and braveness should be respected from us fans. And also subscribe if you haven't already. And I want to start with Zalewski, and then we'll speak about the interview, and I'm going to tell you what Totti said, exactly the best parts of the interview. Now, of course, Zalewski says no to Turkey. Zalewski snubs Galatasaray's proposal after thinking about it, as reported by Gianluca Di Marzio. Zalewski said no to this. I think we should respect this. We know, and I'm honest. I have attacked Zalewski in previous match reactions. I have attacked Zalewski heavily in match reactions this season, last season. I've done it, and I'll be honest. I think Zalewski with Roma is performing 5% of what he can actually do. He's not the player he is actually, because we see him with Poland and he's a better player. And that is what I criticize. This concept of not applying what you are able to do in its fullest and in its best. So I take responsibilities. I've attacked him, and I said this 2 days ago. I wouldn't have complained if Zalewski left, but at the same time, give me credit. I also did say I wouldn't have complained if Zalewski stayed as well. I think I was 50-50 with this. But now that Zalewski's made his decision, I respect this. And I'm gonna give him a shout out, a proper shout out, a deserved shout out, because a player of Zalewski's age, a player of Zalewski's, let's say, not big football caliber, and thus not big football experience. And when I mean football experience, I don't mean, he's won a lot. I mean, not football experience in a sense on the pitch, he knows what to do. But psychological experience. A player of Zalewski's age, in any other club, following the pressure coming from the fans, following, the hate coming from the fans, the hate coming from the press and all of that, I would have packed my bags and left. Because I have understood that the fans have given up on me and that the press is kind of targeting me. So everybody would have gone elsewhere if they were in Zalewski's position. Zalewski decided to be brave. Zalewski had the chance to go away from this hate and probably go to a team where he would have been a massive key player and probably perform well. He said no to this. He said no to a higher wage. And he decided to stay amidst the pressure, amidst the confusion around him, the chaos around him, the mediatic pressure. And he's decided that he wants to stay here to prove us all wrong, because he believes that De Rossi trusts him and that De Rossi will give him more chances. We respect this. And you know why we respect this? We respect this because if it was any other player, this move would have been massively appealed by the media and by us fans. You know, the reason as to why a lot of us aren't really celebrating because of this is because the player involved in this is Zalewski. You know, again, this is what football is about. Fans admire some players and despise other players. We've seen Dybala effectively do a similar thing. We can't compare it fully because, you know, the amount of money that Dybala was going to earn you can't even put it into context. But this is a very similar move to what Dybala did last month. But the reason why it's not being talked about a lot, it's because it's Zalewski, a player who's a victim of the hate and the pressure around the Roman environment. So, I respect this. I really do respect this. However, there's a however in this. In fact, there are two howevers in this. The number one however is that Zalewski saying no to Galatasaray, Zalewski wanting to stay here despite everything and wanting to prove us wrong, now doesn't need to lead to Zalewski starting every game. Because I think Zalewski definitely deserves another chance. And, you know, Zalewski will have other chances because I think De Rossi trusts him and actually likes him a bit. You know, we've seen it. But it shouldn't mean that with this decision, Zalewski is now ahead of El Shaarawy in De Rossi's hierarchies. Football is based on meritocracy. I said this yesterday. Football is not based on the decisions a football player makes. It's about what a player does on the football pitch, which ultimately leads to a result, a positive result. Zalewski will have more chances. Zalewski will start more games. Zalewski will get subbed in more games. But this should not destabilize the hierarchy, which is a clear hierarchy, which is El Salamakers and El Shaarawy, and then Zalewski. Again, I am not trying to denigrate Zalewski. I'm not trying to attack Zalewski again, but Salamakers and El Shaarawy currently give more than what Zalewski does. So therefore, they should start ahead of him or get subbed in ahead of him. Of course, this doesn't mean that Zalewski, as I said, will not have any other chances. He will have his chances. And it's in those chances that he needs to exploit to kind of make us wrong and prove us wrong. This is not the number one, however. The number two, however, the second, however, is the most important one, which is we all respect this decision. We have all accepted this decision, and we've all applauded this decision because it's coming from his heart, it's coming from his courage, and it's coming from, again, you can clearly tell that this is a decision that is coming from a player who's been grown and basically virtually spent his entire life at AS Roma, started from the youth, and now is a starting player. This is a decision which came from his heart because he wants to be here and he loves us and he wants to prove us wrong. But now that he's made this decision, he needs to extend his contract. You know, there is no but, there is no however, there is no maybe. Zalewski said no to Galatasaray. Great, good on him, good on us, possibly. But now he has to extend his contract. Because otherwise, what could happen is, Zalewski's staying, yes, good on him, what a move, let's applaud it, incredible loyalty, incredible courage. But then at the end of the season, his contract expires and he stabs himself in the butt and leaves as a free agent. And that is where the attacks on Zalewski are going to come. This is only going to prove itself a decision coming from his heart if he now accepts a contract extension. If he doesn't accept a contract extension, then he can go fuck himself and he's not going to start any other games. Because it means that he said no to Galatasaray to kind of, prank us, if we can say it, or I should say, finger us, and then leave as a free agent so that we wouldn't earn anything. Zalewski is a player that we can get a lot of money from. And when I mean a lot of money, I mean currently there is no reason why we should ask less than 10 million despite his bad performances. With a contract extension and with more chances, maybe some good performances, there is no reason out there in the world as to why we can't ask 15 million to let Zalewski go. And for 15 million at the end of the season, I can let Zalewski go. But now he needs to extend his contract, because losing Zalewski as a free agent when we could have sold him for 12 million to Galatasaray, but he decided to block this deal, is going to be a clown move. So extend his contract, force him, handcuff him, blindfold him, and extend his contract, because otherwise this is not a decision coming from his heart, if you see what I mean. So that's the way I see it. Good on him. Let's see what he can do. Let's see if this decision is actually wanted, or if it's just a bad move against us to then leave as a free agent. So that's what I will say on Zalewski. Let me read a few comments, and then we're gonna get on the Totti interview. We are stacked in that position. We have El Shaarawy and Salamakers, but he knows he will not get any minutes, but still decide to stay and leave next year as a free agent. Well, yeah, that's exactly what I mean. If he decides to extend his contract, then respect. But if he now decides to leave as a free agent, fuck off. The situation could easily change on two different extremes here. It just depends on this contract thingy now. I'm happy to see Zalewski stay. We should sell El Shaarawy and keep Zalewski. You should make a Serie A prediction video now that the transfer window is done. Mate, unfortunately, I tried to fit it in my schedule, but I don't have time in these next weeks, and it's gonna be, it's gonna be already too long if I do make it in about a month. So yeah, don't worry, stadium vlogs are gonna come, but now I have to make some decisions, and I would rather bring stadium vlogs than Serie A predictions, if you see what I mean. But yeah. Will there be a watch along on Sunday? No, there will not, mate. Match reaction immediately after the game. Now we have to extend his contract indeed. Galatasaray will hate us. We gave them Zaniolo, Mess, stole Hermoso, now Zalewski ghosted them. I love this. Simo looks like Zalewski. Everybody says I look like Zalewski, Belotti, or Blanco, the Italian singer. One of these three. Everybody who I meet says you look identical to one of these three. Either Zalewski, either Belotti, or either Blanco, the Italian singer. Right. Totti. What did Totti say? The first question is about him coming back, and it's basically... the way I read this is that Totti has finally placed a stone on his chances of coming back and working at Roma. He's made it very clear that the club and the ownership does not want him as part of the interior section of the club. And he's very disappointed in this, you could tell. And he's kind of placed a stone, we move. They don't want me. I don't know why they don't want me, but they don't want me. They never called me. And yes, I'm only going to work for a football club if it's Roma. This is something he said in this interview. His loyalty is sticking with Roma. So, the question is, why isn't Totti inside Roma right now? What's wrong with him? And Totti said, I don't know, maybe there's too much loyalty, excessive sincerity, maybe I'm a cumbersome figure. What I say is taking into consideration what others say less. It's as if they were afraid of having an important figure within the club. They believe he can't help, and instead someone could. Now, what I will say here is, it's definitely disrespectful. In fact, no. Let me read what he said, and then I'm gonna give my judgment and my opinion on this first part. He also got asked, what role would you see yourself in? And he said, I would never be the sports director, but maybe I would see myself in a role like the one held by Ibrahimovic or Zanetti, a point of reference between the club, the team, and the coach. In short, a figure like that of the technical director, someone who shows his face, who tells things like they are. Very simple. An operational assignment, not one to be called only when there are problems. So what Totti wants to do effectively is what Mourinho asked for, and what De Rossi should also ask for. Remember, I always date back to this. What was the number one request from Jose Mourinho after 10 minutes after we lost that Budapest final against Seville? The number one he said is attacked the ownership, saying, I'm tired of being more than a football manager. I need somebody who goes against the referees, who speaks on the behalf of the club and the fans and the players, a mediator, a communication person. That is what Mourinho demanded, and that is what Mourinho needed, and it's ultimately what De Rossi also needs. And the ownership never backed Mourinho and is not backing De Rossi in this. Both Mourinho and De Rossi were stranded and are stranded completely by themselves against the negativity waves coming from the fan base, against the negativity waves coming from the press, and all of this. But there's a very big difference between the two, which is what De Rossi will highlight in a sec. We're gonna get there, I promise. So this thing of Totti coming back is, you know, the position that Totti wants to be is the position that Totti needs to be, because, you know, he's literally said this himself. I would never be a sports director. Totti, if he comes back to Roma, should not work with Ghisolfi. I just can't see it happen. It just doesn't fit in well. If Totti comes back and works for Roma, he needs to be somebody who immediately and excessively works with the fans because of his popularity. And it is disrespectful that an image like Totti, the legend, the biggest legend of this club, hasn't ever received a phone call from Dan Fredkin saying, look, Francesco, I might propose you this position at the club. Would you take it or not? But I think there's a reason as to why Totti is not being called by the Fredkins. Now again, the Fredkins could leave, Saudis could come in and take over the club, and Totti might get immediately a phone call and bring him back. The Fredkins don't want him. And I've got my own philosophy as to why the Fredkins don't want him. You know, the Fredkins are very scared of revolts. We've seen this. We've seen this because we've seen it so many times. The Fredkins are scared. The number one fear that our owners have is that one day us fans wake up and want to overthrow them. Kind of a revolution inside Rome. That's their biggest fear. And you know this because when Mourinho got sacked, if De Rossi wasn't appointed, Rome and Roma fans would have revolted outside of Trigoria against the Fredkins. And that's the reason why they appointed De Rossi, to be a calm effect after Mourinho being sacked. Remember when Bonucci was very close in joining us in January? We fans stopped that deal, we and our comments and our frustration in not wanting a Juventus-born, bred and blooded player in our team, like Bonucci, a dickhead. He was on the verge of signing. We stopped it. We said, don't get Bonucci or we'll go at Trigoria and protest. And the Fredkins let him make it happen. This summer, with Paulo Dybala. Dybala on the verge of leaving. Apocalypse in Rome. Roma fans turning up the next day in front of Trigoria. Oh, why did you sell Dybala? Banners and all of that. Dybala ended up staying. Yes, it's a decision coming from the player, but there's also an element of the Fredkins and the owners going, right, we accept this. We're happy. At least we avoided a revolution, a mini revolution. The owners are scared that we could revolt and therefore push them off. An image like Totti would not help in this. Because if Totti would come in and be a player, take a position of somebody who needs to say the truth, criticize the ownership whenever they need to be criticized, then the Fredkins aren't dumb. If Totti gets back at Roma and becomes a communication person amongst the fans and the team, and one day in front of the TV attacks the ownership, 100% of the Roma fan base will back Totti, and therefore 100% of the Roma fan base will attack the Fredkins. I think an image like Totti's popularity, Totti's legacy at this football club is not appreciated by the Fredkins because they feel like he's too big. They feel like he is bigger than the Fredkins themselves. And therefore, when it comes to the decisions of the club, the ambience of the fans can outweigh it. Back Totti, fuck the Fredkins. So I think that's my theory is that that's the reason why Totti hasn't been called back, because Totti being back could be a threat to the Fredkins in their position because of his popularity and all. So that's that. The interesting thing here is, the journalist asked him hints, kind of what advice would he give on De Rossi? Totti and De Rossi are like brothers. What advice would De Rossi's football brother give to Roma's current manager, De Rossi? And this is what Totti said. Daniele needs to be respected. He needs to talk to his staff, the people who are close to him, those who can lend him a hand, who try to make him understand his mistakes. Daniele has a strong, valid working group around him. I hope and think he will succeed because he knows the place, the environment and the club well. He needs to be careful though, because now the blame, if things don't go well, will fall entirely on him. This is what happened to Mourinho, because Jose put his face, but no one helped him, no one spoke, no one backed him. Afterwards, it's tough going against 6 million people. It's hard because you can be whoever you want, but if you don't bring in the results, you become the scapegoat. But I am 100% aware that Daniele is aware of this. And therefore, having said this, then the journalist asked him, don't you think that since it's De Rossi, people would forgive him even if he flops? And Totti is very honest here and says, no, not now. Did you see what they said to him after these first games? What he did last year is already the past. Everyone has forgotten him. What he did as a footballer is also behind him. These are the positive and negative signs of football. We forget easily. Look what happened with me. And then it's one thing to be a footballer and another one to be the coach. With the position of the coach, he now has the responsibility for everything. And I could not have agreed more in Totti's words here. I could not have agreed more. I genuinely could not have agreed more with Totti here. Now, and you know why I agree with him? Because Totti is De Rossi's brother and he's really good friends with Mourinho as well. Mourinho and Totti had a special bond. Only haters can kind of deny this. Totti and Mourinho loved each other at Roma, backed each other. Totti, in some occasions when Mourinho was their manager, was the only one who defended Mourinho. And even after Mourinho was sacked, Totti and Mourinho still have a special bond. So Totti is speaking as somebody who is unbiased, who fully respects De Rossi. He's his football brother and massively admires Mourinho as well. This is the words of somebody who's lived in this team, has been the captain of this team, understands the fans, understands the mediatic pressure, somebody who's been cut out of the club, don't want him back, somebody who's speaking as the legend of this team, but also as the perspective of a fan, because he's not getting paid by Roma. He can say whatever he wants. He isn't paid by the Fredkins. Totti is saying the truth. Totti is being honest here. And the honesty here is something that I said in the 3 match reactions after in these first initial games. You have to be patient. Because look what happens if you're not patient. We lose a game and everybody starts turning against De Rossi. De Rossi is no longer the person, the image, the hero that he was when he was the vice captain after Totti. De Rossi is no longer that. Being the manager completely changes the scenario. If you're the manager, you're responsible for everything. And, Totti is highlighting De Rossi's stranded by himself. If you do not back De Rossi will follow, unfortunately, the same path as Mourinho. If De Rossi keeps on being this isolated, if De Rossi keeps on being this stranded, and if De Rossi keeps on being, I would say, not tactically confused, internally confused, and not internally backed, I think De Rossi will fall under the same well as Mourinho. So, what he's saying here is that there's a very big difference between Mourinho and De Rossi. The difference is, it's not a difference. Excuse me. It's not a difference. I mean, currently it is a difference, but it's a normal difference because De Rossi has literally just started being a manager. Mourinho is about to end his managerial career as one of the top greatest managers in the history of this game. So, of course, Mourinho knows how to deal with these situations well. But one thing that Mourinho did, which in a way saved him, in a way also saved his, I think, reputation a bit. If De Rossi wants to save his reputation, he should be less scared to stop being the puppet of the Fredkins. When Mourinho had something to say, Mourinho put his face. When Mourinho had something, a problem, an inquiry, a question, a doubt, he put his face. When Mourinho wanted to say the truth, Mourinho said the truth. And that is kind of the reputation which saved him. Apart from the fact of being the manager who brought back Roma to winning something, the reason as to why Mourinho is massively respected and has been massively respected, it was written on the banner displayed in that game post Mourinho being sacked by the Curva Sud. It's because Mourinho defended us. So if De Rossi wants to save his reputation as Roma's manager, he needs to be brave, and this is something you'll develop. He's fresh. De Rossi's fresh. De Rossi's new. It's something that he'll evolve. Is he needs to be less scared to say things like they need to be said. Now that's a risk, because ultimately that's what costed Mourinho the sack. I'm not saying De Rossi needs to go, oh, we're losing games, it's the Fredkins' fault. Unlike Mourinho, De Rossi in this transfer session has been backed a lot. A lot of money has been invested. But what I think De Rossi needs to do more of is, and which also will kind of decrease him being isolated, is him needing to say how things are. Now, of course, it's tough. De Rossi is the man. De Rossi is paid by the Fredkins. Only Mourinho could have kind of gone against the Fredkins publicly every time he had the chance to do it. Don't expect De Rossi to start doing what Mourinho did, because Mourinho is kind of the only manager who does it, and he's known for it. He's known for going against and kind of being that cold person. But what we should expect, what Totti expects and advises, and what De Rossi needs to start evolving in, is being less scared to say what the truth is. If the player isn't good enough, I'm not saying he needs to publicly say he's shit like Mourinho did, but what I'm saying is the internal communication, and sometimes the external communication as well, needs to be stronger. It needs to be bigger, because big teams, the teams who succeed the most, one of the number one most important things in great teams is communication between the ownership and the manager. Understanding, both parties understanding that there are problems, and both parties acknowledging what these problems are. That's what I think. Again, we're asking a lot. He started managing 1.5 years ago. This is something that the top of the top managers do. But it's something that, could mark his success. A successful manager is somebody who's got balls and who has a massive sense of communication. Mourinho was a communication legend, communication genius. Do we remember? I still have that interview in my mind. Do we remember when Mourinho won that game against Sassuolo and to kind of protest against the media started speaking Portuguese so that nobody knew what he was saying. I mean, that's genius. That's genius levels, right? So we can't expect De Rossi to do this. But I think a strong communication base will be life-changing at this football club. With every manager. You know, could have been Mourinho, can be De Rossi, can be Bob coming up next month. You know, it really is that important. How old are you? I feel like I know you for 3-4 years. I turned 19 on Sunday, sorry. Have you been told to look like Zalewski? Why does everybody think I look like Zalewski? It's insane. Simonski. Zalewski seems like he can build good future in for Roma. Zalewski seems like a humble guy. He never really complained about playing time. Always said he has to work more. Yeah. Look, and I said this already. I feel bad when I attack Zalewski, and I do deep down. But sometimes it's fully deserved. Sometimes not to the extent of wishing him death. No, as always, there are limits to everything. But some criticisms that all of us have shared to Zalewski are well deserved. In some occasions, they were a bit too much. In some occasions, they are completely deserved. Totti is a smart guy, though. He knows his fans well, so he knows what words to use to avoid Rome from burning down. Blanco mixed with Zalewski. Totti and De Rossi working together at Roma would be a dream come true. I think under the Fredkins, it's not going to happen. But future ownerships, we'll see. Right, I'm going to catch you tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed this live stream. If you did enjoy it, please do hit the like down below. It takes 2 seconds and it would support the video and the channel a lot. Also subscribe to the channel. Thank you for 12.3k. It means the world. Get your families and friends to subscribe, and I will catch you tomorrow or on Saturday for the match preview. On Sunday, we're back. Genoa away. We need the 3 points. And we will get the 3 points. Trust the process. Talk to you soon. Good night. And I'll speak to you soon. Simo out.